Welcome to my YouTube channel. This video is about Complete Vocal Technique, which is a book, an app, and a way of thinking about singing that some people made up about 20 years ago in Denmark. Catherine Sadolin, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, founded the Complete Vocal Institute, which is where they teach CVT, in 2005, 5 years after she published the first book. At the Complete Vocal Institute, also known as CVI, they have hundreds of singers learning in courses each year, and they also have a teacher training program where they teach people to teach CVT. So, why am I telling you about this CVT thing, and is it actually going to help you make your singing better? Well, my fellow singers, how you think about your singing, or feel about your singing, or just plain exist while you sing, has really large implications for how your singing is going to be. For example, if you just sing mindlessly without paying attention to what you're doing at all, the result is going to be really, really different than if you were to sit there, sing, and really hyper-analyze every single detail as the sound is coming out of your mouth. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Now, another example would be perceiving your voice really, really mechanically, like an instrument, or really just going with the flow of things and by feeling. So, the current state of your voice is the result of the way you think about singing and the way you think about your own voice. CVT is a particular method for approaching singing and approaching thinking about singing that is a really, really useful model for a lot of singers. CVT takes on the Herculean task of trying to map out and figure out every single sound that the human voice can do, from death metal to classical operatic singing, and how to produce it in a healthy way. It does this by categorizing the voice into 4 vocal modes, explaining the sound color options you have from light to dark, and explaining how to produce vocal effects like rattle, distortion, and growl. Now, what I've found useful about this is that I have a certain way of arranging my perception of sound and singing, so I can figure out how to do certain things better, or figure out how to do things that I might not be able to do at all, but that I hear somewhere else being done, like in, a singer that I like. Now, when I first encountered CVT, they had these modes and these different sounds that I really couldn't even produce. I didn't understand them. I was like, wow, like I can't copy that at that note, or I can't copy that sound correctly. Like my voice does this other thing when I try to do that. In fact, I couldn't actually accurately perceive the sound. I was sort of perceiving it through my system, through my perception of thinking about singing, and I couldn't actually see the modes for the modes as their own categories. Through learning CVT, I learned to expand my available options of singing because there was something that I couldn't do that then I learned how to do. And also, I learned how to switch my perception so that I could think in that way and also think in a different way. So in this video, I'm just going to be explaining CVT's 4 vocal modes and how you can find them. There's a lot more to CVT than this, but to me, this is the main chunk of what it is. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining CVT's vocal modes. I'm going to explain how you can find them and explain how to apply them to songs. Okay, but before we jump into it, I just have to make this little disclaimer that I am not an authorized CVT teacher. What this means is that the things I'm saying aren't necessarily endorsed by CVI because I haven't actually gone through their teacher training program and been certified to teach it. That being said, I don't think that I'm wrong about this. I just have to make that disclaimer. Now, let's talk briefly about sound production in the human voice so that we can have a good understanding of what a vocal mode is. You can think of your voice as having 3 main components: power, source, and the filter. The power is your air, which you suck into your lungs through one of two holes, the mouth or the nose, or both, where the air then travels down into the space above your vocal folds, the pharynx, and continues down the trachea pipe into your lungs, where you then spit the air back out through the same holes. The source of your voice are the vocal folds, which are positioned right here at the top of the trachea pipe. The vocal folds are kind of like a valve. They can be wide open, like when you just breathe with no sound. And they can be closed completely, like this. Now, when you speak or sing, your vocal folds are basically vibrating against the column of air that's passing through them by repeatedly touching, like this. The sound produced there at the vocal folds is then transformed by your filter, also known as the vocal tract, which is all of the stuff above your vocal folds, which are here, and all the way to the end of your mouth and the end of your nose. Now, the vocal modes are basically specific coordinations that you can do of your vocal folds and your vocal tract. The 4 vocal modes are called curbing, overdrive, edge, and neutral. So keep in mind that when you transition from one mode to another mode, you're actually changing something about the way that you're using your vocal folds or the way that you're using your vocal tract, or both. In order to understand the characteristics of each CVT mode, we need to understand some of the terminology that CVT uses to differentiate them. So the 4 terms that we're going to go over are metal, density, twang, and hold. All right, so let's start with metal. Metal is basically the term that we're going to use to differentiate 3 of the modes from one of the modes. Now, neutral is the mode that has absolutely no metal, and the other 3 all have metal. So if there's no metal, it's neutral. If there is metal, you can know it's one of the other 3 vocal modes. Understanding what metal was threw me off for a long...
1 hour later. 2 hours later. 3 hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
Time. And I used to think those Danes were kind of crazy, but now I think I'm getting it. Either that or I'm going crazy too. Metal is basically a certain sound. I think of it as being a kind of frequency, as this buzzy quality that kind of just appears in the sound. When you press your vocal folds together firmly and you have a sufficiently high enough pressure of air vibrating them, then you'll start to get the appearance of metal. To find metal, start with a really, really quiet sound and then gradually get louder and louder. And notice how the quality of the sound changes once you do that. If you hear something turn on or appear in the sound that wasn't there before, that's probably the metal. The louder you go, the more your ability to increase the metal will increase as well. So you can have more or less metal in the sound, or no metal at all. When you're using metal, it's really correlated to volume. More metal, more volume. But it's important to note that volume is not metal. I can get louder without increasing the metal. So metal is more than just volume. So the mode that has absolutely no metal is neutral. And the modes that have metal are overdrive, edge, and curbing. Now, metal is categorized into full metallic or reduced metallic. To be categorized as full metallic, the sound has to have 50% or more capacity of metal. If the sound is categorized as reduced metallic, that means that it has 50% or less. So it's a spectrum. 1 to 50%, it's reduced metallic. 50% to 100%, full metallic. Overdrive and edge are the full metallic vocal modes, and curbing is the reduced metallic vocal mode. What that means is that curbing is basically never able to exceed that 50% cap of the metal. It can range from 1% metal to 15% metal. Now, this isn't an exact thing. It's just a way of thinking about the metal. You can have more or less. Of course, it would be really, really hard to know and to divide that number into single percents, like 1% increasing 2%. It would be maybe more accurate to go by tens, 10% metal, 20% metal. So overdrive and edge, they're the full metallic vocal modes. Curbing is the reduced metallic vocal mode, and neutral is the non-metallic vocal mode. So what that means is that curbing can't exceed 50% metal. It can range from 1% all the way to 50%, but it can't go past that point. What about overdrive and edge? Overdrive and edge, they can. They can go all the way to 100% metal. So they can be the most metallic sounding modes. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so overdrive, edge, those have 100% to 50%. Curbing is 50% to 0%. So whenever there's metal, if it's between 1 and 50, it's curbing, and if it's between 50 and 100, or 51 and 100, then it's overdrive and edge. But no, that's not true. Curbing can only have up to 50%. Overdrive and edge can actually have the entire spectrum of 1 to 100% of metal. This might be confusing, and you're like, what? I don't get it. But hang in there. Once I explain the other terms, you'll understand why that's the case. So now let's go over density. CVT concept of density is actually an advanced way of framing the model. They have both a foundational level and an advanced level. In the foundational level, the term density isn't even used. But in the advanced level, they use density to explain how filled out or compact a note sounds. I like to visualize density as shading with a colored pencil. If I shade just a little bit of red, for example, then there's going to be less density. But the more I press the pencil on there and the more I shade in, the more dense and filled out that color is going to be. And I think of it as the same thing with my voice. Density, okay. Well, can every mode have different kinds of density then? Yeah. Each mode can range from being reduced density to fuller density, except for curbing. Reduced density is when the density is less than 50%, and fuller density is when it's more than 50%. Now, this is the little curveball that separates the foundational level from the advanced level in CVT. Under the foundational level of CVT, when you reduce the density of overdrive and edge, you're just going to end up in curbing. Side note, don't you guys just hate when you're watching something and then there's just an error in the continuity? Anyways. It's kind of like a mini version of the fuller density mode because the vocal tract is still in that similar shape to the full density mode, and that's why we have that similar sound character, but the density is reduced. So if you're singing in curbing and you increase the density past the 50% point and you keep the metal, then you're going to end up in edge or overdrive. So edge and overdrive are the two vocal modes that can both have full metal and full density. Neutral is the vocal mode that's non-metallic, but can range from reduced density to fuller density. And curbing is the reduced metallic and reduced density vocal mode. Okay, that was a lot. So how do we make something fuller density or reduced density? How do we like conceptualize this? Well, let's introduce another term. The hold. The hold is basically how I differentiate between the reduced density or the fuller density. So to find the hold and figure out what it is, close your glottis, this area in between your vocal folds, kind of like that, or when you hold your breath, and that area closes. After you find that hold, try to keep that sensation there when you start singing. So, be careful not to take this too low in pitch because it just doesn't work very well down there. So if you're trying to do it like down there, it's really not gonna work. It's just gonna turn into a squeeze. You see, my voice just kind of disappears and fizzles out, as opposed to if I didn't have the hold, it keeps going. So try it in like the low to medium pitch range of your voice, just kind of like an easy, not too low range. One of the things you might notice about this is that it's very like held, and that's kind of why I think hold is a good name, because you're holding it, so the sound. You feel like you're holding like or like you're lifting something up or holding something like, or you're pressing on something like or like kind of like you're pooping like and that makes it sound like you're complaining sometimes, or like the sound is plaintive or whiny. So try to channel something like that, like Mom, oh my God. So that kind of a voice, really like, or ooh, my stomach hurts. Ow, ow, ow. That's going to be the hold, and that's going to get you into curbing when you have metal. So if you have this sort of coordination present, then you're probably going to be in curbing. And if you have this present, but you don't have any metal, then that means that you're in the reduced density version of neutral. Because remember, if it's got the hold, it's reduced density, right? And if you're holding without the metal, it's just neutral. If you're holding with the metal, it's going to be curbing. So in the examples where I was transitioning from reduced density to fuller density, I was doing that by thinking of having this kind of hold present. So if I had edge, like, A, really, really metallic, and like full metal and full density, A, and then I add hold to that, A, then I'm going to get into curbing basically. And you can hear how it sounds more held back. It sounds like there's a bit of a cry to the sound. That would be reduced to density edge basically. And it's a continuum. I can have a lot of hold, or I can just have a little bit of hold. And so that's how I make that go to reduced density or go to full density. All right, so last term is going to be twang. Twang in the CVT sense is a type of move you can do in your vocal tract. What you're doing is you're basically narrowing the epiglottic funnel, which is the space above your vocal folds. You're basically making the space above the vocal folds smaller. You constrict a part of your throat and bring things closer together. Now, CVT has 3 overall principles, which I'm really not going to get into here. But one of them is necessary twang. And that just means that there's a certain amount of that closing of the space above the vocal folds, of that narrowness in that space, that you need in order to produce sound in a clear and healthy way. Now, I know all the open throat fanatics out there are going crazy, because basically, in order to sing in a way that isn't overly constricted and unhealthy, you have to have a certain amount of necessary constriction or twang in your throat. Now, this type of twang really isn't something that I think most people need to think about and really pay much attention to, but CVT distinguishes this necessary twang from the distinct twang. So when we're talking about twanging in CVT, I'm really talking about distinct twang. Necessary twang is just any sound produced in a healthy way really has that necessary twang going on. And if you've got distinct twang, then you're going to have a really clear, audibly twanged sound. That's why it's distinct twang. To get distinct twang, it can help to just, in general, make your vocal tract smaller at first. So try to differentiate between a large space in your vocal tract and a small space in your vocal tract. You can give this a shot by doing sort of what I call big dog versus little dog. And you'll notice that in one of those, the larynx is very low, and then the other one, the larynx is very high. The tongue position also matters a great deal. In the big dog, my tongue is really, really far back in my throat and down. And with the little dog, you can see it right there. It raises up and it's high. So once you get the hang of the little dog, that's kind of the one we want to go with. And by doing that little dog, you should feel the tongue be raising up quite a bit. Now I want you to, if it's not raised, make sure you raise it up and touch it to the back molars. All the way back around here. And raise it up like that. Like you're going, hey guys, what's up? And now at this point, just basically go for that really, really buzzy, annoying, nasty quality. Hey guys. Now it's important to note that this doesn't require you to push extra air out or to force or strain your voice. It's really comfortable. And when you do it right, you should sort of get an explosion in the amount of sound that you're getting out of your mouth. Make sure you guys aren't getting overly tight and just constricting and then thinking that that's twang. Twang really should feel very free and very, very easy. It shouldn't feel like you're squeezing your throat abnormally or particularly tight. If you're struggling to find this sound in your chest voice down low, try to go really high with the sound and imitate like a witch cackling. Or, I don't know, some kind of ambulance sound. Imitating a baby crying is also another thing you can try to get this sound to work. Or down low. Also, quacking like a duck is one of my personal favorite ones. Quack, 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 quack.
Hey, bump, bump, bump. Got any grapes?
Once you get the hang of twanging distinctly, try to basically treat twang as something that's on a continuum, which it is. You can have more or less twang. So go from having basically like a sound that doesn't have distinct twang and then add distinct twang on a continuum smoothly. So increasing your twang is one of the things that we can do to shift vocal modes. If you've got distinct twang present and you have metal in your voice, then you're probably going to be in the vocal mode edge, which, if we recall from earlier, is one of the full metallic, full density modes. If you've got distinct twang present, you've got metal, but you've got the hold, then you're going to be in the reduced density version of edge under the advanced level of CVT, or you're going to be in basically curbing under the foundational level. Now, of course, if you are twanging a lot and you've got distinct twang, but you don't have any metal going on, then you're just going to be in a twanged neutral. All right, now that we've covered these really, really pivotal concepts in CVT, let's move on to talking about the modes specifically.